Welcome to ProutNews Weekly. Each week, we examine current events from around the world through the lens of Prout, the progressive utilization theory, developed by P.R. Sarkar. Rather than focusing on political drama or stock market fluctuations, we look at deeper questions. Who controls the economy? Who benefits from development? And how can economic systems better serve people, communities, and the natural world? This week's theme is farming and food systems. Food is one of humanity's most basic necessities. Every civilization depends upon its ability to feed itself. Yet, around the world, food systems are under increasing pressure. Farmland is becoming concentrated into fewer hands. Rural communities are shrinking. Supply chains stretch across continents. Agricultural production often prioritizes short term profits over long term ecological health. At the same time, communities around the world are experimenting with alternatives: regenerative farming, agroforestry, cooperative food systems, and local agriculture designed to strengthen both communities and ecosystems. This week, we examine three stories from South America, Asia, and Europe. Together, they tell a larger story about the future of food. We begin in Colombia. Our first story comes from the Colombian Amazon. A recent Guardian article examined how farmers in the department of Guaviare view the country's political future through the lens of agriculture, land use, and conservation. For decades, this region has faced enormous pressures. Conflict, cocoa cultivation, illegal logging, cattle expansion, and land speculation have all contributed to deforestation throughout the Amazon. Yet, many local farmers are attempting to build a different future. The article profiles farming communities that are experimenting with cacao production, agroforestry systems, and sustainable agriculture while simultaneously protecting the forests that surround them. Rather than viewing the Amazon simply as a resource to be extracted, these farmers increasingly see themselves as stewards of both food production and ecological health. Many have participated in local conservation initiatives designed to reduce deforestation while maintaining viable rural livelihood. The challenge is enormous. Farmers must earn enough through income to support their families while resisting pressures that encourage clearing more land for short term gain. The article highlights a fundamental tension found throughout the developing world. How can rural communities improve their economic conditions without destroying the natural systems upon which they depend? From a Prout perspective, this story illustrates an important principle. Economic development and environmental protection should not be viewed as opposing goals. When local communities control resources and have long-term stake in their stewardship, they often become the strongest defenders of those resources. Prout argues that natural wealth should be utilized rationally and sustainably. The farmers of Guaviare are attempting exactly that, producing food and income while protecting one of the world's most important ecosystems. Their success or failure will have consequences far beyond Colombia. Our second story comes from Japan. Recent agricultural reports reveal a dramatic decline in the country's farming population. Japan has now experienced one of the largest reduction in independent farmers in its modern history. The number of active farmers continues to fall, while the average age of those remaining is approaching 70 years old. Across rural Japan, villages are shrinking, farmland is being abandoned. Many young people leave agricultural regions in search of employment opportunities in cities. As older farmers retire, there are often few successors willing or able to continue operating family farms. The consequences extend far beyond agriculture itself. Farming is not merely an economic activity, it is also a source of local knowledge, cultural traditions, food security, and community identity. When farming populations disappear, communities lose more than food production. They lose institutions, skills, relationships, and resilience. Japan remains a wealthy and technologically advanced country. Food still appears on supermarket shelves, but the article raises important questions about long-term sustainability. What happens when a nation becomes increasingly dependent upon imports? What happens when a local productive capacity steadily declines? and what happens when the people who understand the land are no longer there to cultivate it. From a Prout perspective, this story highlights the importance of local productive capacity. Economic security is not measured solely by financial wealth. A society must also maintain the ability to produce its basic necessities. Food sovereignty begins with farmers. Without a new generation entering agriculture, even prosperous nations may find themselves increasingly vulnerable. Japan's experience serves as a warning for many countries facing similar demographic trends. Our final story comes from Italy. An article examining Italy's agricultural cooperatives highlights how farmers are using cooperation to strengthen local food systems and remain economically viable in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. Small farmers throughout Europe face numerous challenges. Large supermarket chains possess significant bargaining power. Global supply chains often favor large scale producers. Input costs continue to rise, and many farmers struggle to capture a fair share of the value generated by their products. Agricultural cooperatives offer one response. By working together, farmers can share processing facilities, storage infrastructure, transportation systems, marketing resources, and distribution networks. Instead of competing against one another, they cooperate to achieve economies of scale while maintaining local ownership. The article describes how many Italian cooperatives help connect producers directly with consumers, restaurants, schools, and local markets. This strengthens regional food systems while allowing more wealth to remain within farming communities. Importantly, these cooperatives do not eliminate individual farms. Rather, they allow independent farmers to maintain ownership while benefiting from collective organization. From a Prout perspective, this represents one of the most practical applications of economic democracy. Agriculture is often most productive when farms remain locally owned and locally managed. At the same time, cooperation enables small producers to overcome disadvantages that would be too difficult to address individually. Italy's agricultural cooperatives demonstrate that efficiency and local ownership do not need to be opposing goals. Through cooperation, communities can build food systems that are both economically viable and socially beneficial. This week's stories reveal three different dimensions of the global food challenge. In Colombia, we saw farmers working to balance food production with ecological stewardship in one of the world's most important environmental regions. In Japan, we saw the dangers that emerge when local farming populations decline and productive capacity begins to disappear. And in Italy, we saw how cooperative institutions can strengthen local food systems and support independent farmers. Together, these stories point towards a common lesson. Food security is not simply about producing more food. It's about who controls the land, who controls the food, how it is produced, and whether communities retain the capacity to meet their own basic needs. From a Prout perspective, healthy food systems require healthy soil, strong local farms, cooperative institutions, and long-term stewardship of natural resources. As communities around the world search for more resilient futures, these principles may become increasingly important. Thank you for joining us for this edition of ProutNews Weekly. We'll see you next week as we continue exploring the stories shaping our world through the lens of economic democracy, decentralization, and human-centered development.